The European leaders alongside the NATO leadership have gathered in London today for another Ukraine emergency summit. The NATO chief, Rutte, has decided to head back at Zelenskyy and give him a very strong advice when it comes to his relationship with the United States. And in this video, we're going to give you guys the latest update on the whole saga between the European continent and the United States. Welcome back to 2CTV, your global news channel. It's been a tough couple of days for the European leaders, and Zelenskyy himself obviously left Washington, traveled to London, had a meeting with the Prime Minister and also Chancellor Rachel Reeves. They approved about 2 billion or 2.6 billion pound loan to Ukraine, then met with the King. Today, they've all been gathering to discuss the division between the European side of NATO and, of course, the American side. There is a bit of a problem here because without the American support, NATO will not actually be NATO. It will simply just be the European Union and a couple of other non-EU members. The other problem with this is that the chief of NATO, Mark Rutte, actually knows this. Now, Mark Rutte is not an angel. As you guys know, his background when it comes to globalist politics is that he doesn't really care much about national sovereignties. He wants to push for the United States of Europe as a project, and he obviously still claims to be centre-right, but he doesn't necessarily care much about flags and borders when it comes to the European Union member states. But obviously his job is to support and protect the sovereignty and the flag of Ukraine. So the flag of Ukraine is important, but the flags of France, the Netherlands, Germany, not that important. Having said that, he knows that without the American side, NATO will fall apart. He doesn't care about what Emmanuel Macron is saying. Emmanuel Macron and his minions are going around saying we need to basically accelerate the plans to have a European army to oppose NATO. What they mean is to oppose the Americans. I don't know how they can do it, considering that they're not even paying their fair share right now into the EU budget, the NATO budget. But Mark Rutte had a meeting with Zelenskyy, warned him, saying that the only way you can sort this out is you have to fix the relationship. We cannot move forward unless you sort out the American side. He also publicly said you have to find a way, dear Volodymyr, to restore your relationship with Donald Trump and the American administration. So this is true. Having said that, it's absolutely fascinating how the last couple of days the media have been concentrating on what happened in the Oval Office. They've been saying, well, everything is about Zelenskyy not wearing a suit. That's not the reason. It is interesting because obviously some normal people who just watch the TV and think it's some sort of like reality show, and they listen to the headlines from CNN or BBC World Service or whatever, they think, well, they told me, the newsreader said, the reason for the clash between Zelenskyy and the Trump administration was because he didn't wear a suit. That's not the reason. The main reason goes back, firstly, to the historic division between the personalities anyway. But in recent days and weeks, President Trump's approach has been, we have a strategy. We're going to use this strategy for both the Russian side and Ukraine to bring them to the negotiating table. And then once you negotiate and have peace, then you can sort out security and everything else to make sure that Ukraine is secure. Right now, innocent Ukrainian civilians are getting killed. And the only way you can stop this is to make sure you tell the Russians to stop. And you have to negotiate. The Ukrainian approach, Zelensky's approach, not necessarily Ukrainian approach, Zelensky's approach has not really been the same. It hasn't really been, and that's what the whole fight started in the Oval Office, not because of the suit or lack of suit. It was because he said with negotiations not really the priority. And that is a problem because you have to negotiate anyway. Both sides said that. NATO said that. The European leaders said that. This is where it got complicated. But luckily, Marco Rubio has been very proactive as Secretary of State to go around and clarify this to the media who are being stupid. Let's go to Marco Rubio.
everybody's saying security guarantees to secure the peace. You first have to have a peace. We don't even know if the peace is possible. And this was understood by the Ukrainians. It was explained to them repeatedly. And that is, here's our strategy. We're trying to get Putin to a negotiating table. Let's not rehash. Everyone knows the history here, the back and forth. We understand that. We all understand that. But the question now is, can we get them to a table to negotiate? That's our goal. Don't do anything to disrupt that. And that's what Zelenskyy did, unfortunately, is he found every opportunity to try to Ukraine-splain on every issue. Then he confronts the vice president. When the vice president says, the goal here is diplomacy, he immediately jumps in and challenges the vice president. Well, what kind of diplomacy? So we all understand, okay, that Putin is not going to be an easy negotiator in this regard. We all get that. But we have to start the process to see if something is even possible. And I honestly am puzzled. I just don't understand. The Biden administration berated Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis, put all kinds of conditions and pressure on them to try to get a ceasefire. In this particular case, we've been nice by comparison. And all we're trying to do here is figure out whether a peace is possible. All these other things that people keep bringing up, that'll have to be a part of a negotiation. Right now, there is no negotiation. Shouldn't we at least try to see if there is a way to end this war in a way that's acceptable to both sides and is enduring and sustainable? How is that a bad thing? I really am puzzled why anyone thinks that trying to be a peacemaker is a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when it's Donald Trump trying to do it. When it's President Trump, it's absurd to me.
It's true. And you have to play with the cards you've been dealt with. So at this point, we know that the invasion happened. And we know Putin is not a good man. You can't just say, would you please leave Ukraine? He's not going to do that, right? Forget about everything that happened that led to the invasion itself. Forget about everything that's happened over the last 10 years, 20 years. Invasions happened. You have two options. Just like you have different scenarios. In Gaza or in Lebanon, you know the enemy is weak. So you can go and capture. You can go and take out Hassan Nasrallah or Yahya Sinwar. If scenario one was easy, it would have been done anyway, which is, I don't know, to go and capture Moscow and unseat Putin. That failed. You can't ask nicely for Putin to forget about everything and leave. You have to negotiate. You have to go with diplomacy. You have to stop this so people stop dying in Ukraine. But if you don't want to go with diplomacy, what is the option? Do you want to press the nuclear button? That's another option. You can do it if you want to. That's a crazy option, but that's an option. Because the conventional army is not able to go and capture Moscow. If that's the other option, right? But you have to look at it in a very objective way. But again, President Trump has been doubling down. He just posted this saying, now Zelenskyy will have no choice but to back down and accept Trump's terms. But here's the genius part. Trump is actually protecting Ukraine without dragging the US into war. By negotiating a mineral deal, Trump ensures that Americans will be involved in Ukraine's mineral mining industry. This prevents Russia from launching an invasion, because attacking Ukraine would mean endangering American lives, something that would force the US to respond. Trump played both sides like a master chess player. In the end, Zelenskyy will have no choice but to concede, because without the US support, Ukraine cannot win a prolonged war against Russia. And once the US companies have mining operations in Ukraine, Putin will be unable to attack without triggering massive international consequences. Don't underestimate Donald Trump in this game of chess. He's 10 moves ahead of everyone. And as usual, extremely humble. I love that statement. That is a good point. Obviously, if the Americans are present there in terms of the industries, Putin knows if he attacks Ukraine, then the Americans will have to hit back. That's even a better deterrent than right now the existing deterrent, which is the nuclear. Because this will be directly between the US and Russia. As we said, you cannot reason with someone like Putin. Innocent Ukrainians are dying. And you go around, and I just made these two statements, right, about Putin and innocent civilians. But as I've been saying the last 2 days, it doesn't matter, apparently, because if I then criticize Zelensky's approach and strategy, the liberals and some of the so-called center-right people say, Maya Tusi, you support genocide against the Ukrainian people. You hate Ukrainian people. You love Putin. The same Maya Tusi who's basically lost relatives because of Putin's support for IRGC. Apparently, if you criticize Zelenskyy, that means you love Putin. If you have anybody in your friendship circle who thinks like that, cut them off. There's absolutely no need to deal with snowflakes. There are innocent people dying right now, and the approach by their president is not going to help. That's the reality of the situation. Just like how people in the United Kingdom at the time, when the negotiations were happening with Adolf, would have easily said, our prime minister is stupid. He just came with a piece of paper saying piece of our time. The prime minister was stupid. That's why they had to get rid of him. And the next one actually did a different approach. So there are sometimes the other way around that also works. But you can't criticize your leader. Now, having said that, right now, the European leaders are in London, ladies and gentlemen, alongside the NATO leadership. And as we said, the NATO leadership have made it clear to Zelenskyy and, of course, to their own European allies that you cannot go ahead by abandoning the relationship with the American side, because it's America. They could eat you up within 10 minutes, and we're not going to be able to survive against the Russians. It's just not going to work. What are you going to do? Put together even the European army, they will still fail. Let's go to the today, just a clip of the European leaders whining and dining, by the way. They're supposed to be having emergency talks, but they're having drink receptions and nice 3-course dinners and everything else. You know, while you're in London, why not have fun?
Please stop.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
The difficulty for the European side is, again, they put their NATO leadership in the corner. Macron could keep going around saying, we need to get rid of NATO, we don't need NATO, we need the European army. He could keep saying that. But the more he says that, the more he's dividing the NATO side, and obviously NATO will stay with the American side anyway. And of course the Canadian side. Now Justin Trudeau's going. He's not going to stay around. And even Trudeau, even right now, Trudeau was not really a supporter of the European army. Why would he be when he has NATO? So all these anti-NATO European leaders, the whole thing is going to massively backfire on them. But now, as we speak, they're going to have the 3-course dinner, 4-course dinner anyway, because they have to have fun while they're in London. Elon Musk hit back saying the EU leaders and Zelenskyy having fancy dinners while men die in trenches. How many parents will never see their son again? How many children will never see their father? Elon also posted this photo with the original post. It's basically a chessboard. All the actual pieces are dead, but the 2 kings and queens are having dinner and, you know, just having a bit of a summit. It's a good metaphor of what's actually going on right now. But not all the European leaders are insane. We have obviously Giorgia Meloni of Italy, who's closer to the American side than the European Union, because she's Eurosceptic, and she has a special, obviously, friendship with both Elon and Donald Trump. She has also warned, saying that it's very, very important that we avoid the risk that the West divides over Ukraine. That is the priority, to make sure the West doesn't divide over this issue. The other European leaders have been telling her to shut up. We don't really care, Jojo, but she holds major cards as the Italian partner of this whole European project. They have to listen to her. But again, they can keep going with their own usual approach. Meanwhile, the problem with the missing money, $100 billion dollars, that President Zelenskyy himself admitted, saying, I don't know where the money's gone. Kash Patel has been speaking out, obviously as now the head of the FBI, but he's been saying it for a while. And there is an investigation now. Doge, on behalf of Elon Musk, as a department, are going around to find out, to investigate, to see what's happened with this money. But Kash Patel has previously also mentioned this and saying, well, we need to find out what's going on. The issue with the corruption, and of course the missing money and everything else. Let's quickly go back to Kash Patel to see what he said before.
I've asked this Congress to investigate, where has this money gone? The American people are owed that answer, because it's our money. It's our taxpayer dollars.
And there's a lot of really good reason to be concerned, because, you know, the Ukraine was known as a, you know, place of corruption, a place for money laundering.
Yeah. It's not like we sent $1 billion, as if that was even a small number to begin with, right? We've sent 100 times that to one country. I don't know how this Congress is allowed to get away with it. And Zelenskyy is out there. He went on the world stage and said Russia fired a rocket into Poland, which would literally be an act of war. Well, it turned out that Russia fired no such rocket. It turned out that the rocket came from the Ukraine and was fired into Poland.
And it was a mistake, basically.
If Zelensky's going to go out there and beg the world for more money and come to the U.S. and sit in the well of our Congress and say, we want more money, and then call and demand the new Speaker of the House provide more and more money, and call Mitch McConnell and say, we need more and more machinery, he needs to be more prepared about global statements that bring us to the precipice of war than doing what he did last fall with this missile attack, or this missile launch, I should say. And we just can't have full faith and trust by giving a leader $100 billion and having him say, I'm not telling you where the money went.
Now, it is also important to mention that despite all this, obviously innocent civilians in Ukraine continue to be under attack, but Zelensky's approval rating is still around 57%. That's actually, he's more popular than many other European leaders, despite everything else, because obviously it's wartime and the population don't really see any alternative. Obviously, they can't get rid of him because they can't have an election yet because it's wartime, but they're still rallying the troops. Obviously, the opposition are trying to unseat him, try to do some sort of impeachment, but that's a whole different argument to have. That is the approach that's still going on. Meanwhile, the European side who are attacking President Trump over this and many other issues as well that they've been clashing with Trump because of the tariffs. These are just excuses. Prime Minister Starmer's approach has been to do the charm offensive, to keep Trump close, same as Macron. Starmer has also managed to get David Lammy, the foreign secretary who hates Trump, to just keep his mouth shut, just smile and nod when you go to the White House, be diplomatic, something Zelenskyy could have done. But seems like Keir Starmer has also spoken to Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, ladies and gentlemen, Sad IQ Khan, who really hates Trump, because he said it, I'm not saying it. He's also changed his tune, not necessarily, he still doesn't like Trump, but he actually, before he didn't want to meet Trump. This time, Sadiq Khan has now invited President Trump to take him to Brick Lane in East London. For those of you who are not familiar, East London is a little bit dodgy, but it's very diverse, as we say. Diversity is our strength. Sadiq Khan has invited President Trump to go to Brick Lane to have curry. I'm not joking. Now, he's doing it to be sarcastic and to basically be sassy and say, I'm taking him to the S-hole that is East London, to Brick Lane, to show him curry houses, to show him the strength of diversity. The problem with Sadiq Khan's idea is that it's very dangerous because President Trump could get stabbed within the first 30 seconds of arrival in Brick Lane. It will be safer for Trump to have curry in Gaza than in East London. Why would he do that? Unless this is his plan to just trick him and bring him to East London. Don't take him to East London. It's not a good idea. Also, terrible curry houses in Brick Lane. It's clear Sadiq Khan has terrible taste when it comes to food as well. Also, it's Ramadan. He can't even eat right now. What is he talking about? Let's get some reaction while we're here. Ivan, thank you very much for your super chat saying NATO knows they are done without the US. Well, yeah. And the NATO bureaucrats and the top of the NATO, they also know that the EU army obviously is the opponent, is a rival to NATO, is to replace NATO without America. Firstly, it's a stupid idea. Secondly, it's not going to work. Thirdly, they won't have as much money. You've seen the budget of the European defense departments compared to the American side. The American side just single-handedly could just destroy the European side. And they also don't want to lose their own gravy train at the top of NATO. So they obviously oppose this. Now, Ivan also says Zelenskyy does not want the money train to stop. Gerald says Zelenskyy is clueless with the term playing cards. Zelenskyy, what cards? Yeah, so okay, this is a very good point, by the way. So to be objective, I did mention it last night. One of the problems with the Oval Office drama, one main problem was Zelensky's wrong tactic overall. Secondly, the body language didn't help. But thirdly, let's not forget the language barrier. There were 4 or 5 instances where, because of the language barrier, he didn't get it, or the other side didn't get. He used the word that they didn't get. One of them was the cards, playing cards. Trump was saying, these are the cards. You don't have any cards to play with. He misunderstood it. He was like, "What cards? I'm not playing cards." He thought it was. I think Zelensky thought Trump was saying you're playing games, but he was talking about the cards you've been dealt with. There were so many instances in that meeting that just turn around to your translator, double check. That would help. Usually, I'm very much in favor of just getting everyone to speak English, but actually, sometimes it's best to use a translator. So, to be objective, one of the main problems was also language barrier, but not the main issue. Neil from Canada says Zelensky is a cokehead. And Vinny says no one is exempt from criticism when relevant. Exactly. It's like some of the liberal people last night who were trying to do gotcha, saying again they've been saying, everyone have a problem with Zelensky not wearing a suit. They're not wearing a suit thing. That was not a big deal. That was what the media focused on. Everybody had an issue with the fact that his approach was not correct. Even Macron, even Starmer would admit, if you meet them, if you have dinner, if you have drinks with Starmer or Macron, they would admit. They would say, yes, that's not how you perform in the Oval Office. Do it the way we did. Literally, earlier in the week, we had Macron and Starmer. Watch that. That's how you do it. And having said that, they were going around saying, it's all about the suit thing. Ooh, Elon Musk doesn't wear a suit. And then they said, well, Churchill didn't wear a suit once. What they're trying to do is to get you, get me, to basically be cornered, saying, because they know I love Churchill, for me to say, there's exceptions for Churchill. No. Even the great Winston Churchill is not exempt from any criticism or being mocked. Everybody should be allowed to be criticized and be mocked. Just like how any idea, any ideology, any religion should be mocked, should be criticized if needed. But this is just tribalist nonsense. Ivan says, let's party while thousands are being unalived. Yeah, that's what's happening in London tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Nice dinner. Stu says he's got a good minerals deal and put the US in this as protectors without putting boots on the ground and being the aggressor. Very smart. Yeah, it's a genius move. It's not even a genius, it's common sense move. To get the Americans to be there for commercial reasons, by default, obviously the Russians can't go crazy again and attack. Because if they attack, the Americans will say, well, we're going to have to hit you now. It's a good deterrent. It's a good everyday deterrent. By the way, that's not the only security you could give Ukraine. There are so many other things you could also give to protect normal Ukrainian people in their territory, especially towards the western side. But this is just part of it. Someone added a non-super chat. Let's go to a couple of non-super chats. Said, did the money ever leave America? That's also a good point. But we still don't know where the money went. Zelensky doesn't know where the money went. And, he wants to find out as well. As he's been saying, nobody knows where the money is. It just disappeared. Tasman says, regarding a chess game, checkmate. Checkmate. Check, as in check. As Colonel McGregor said, NATO now belongs to a museum. They need to know what the purpose of it is now in 2025. Especially after this whole conflict is over, they need to actually redefine the purpose of NATO. When Chamberlain came back with Peace in Our Time, he was massively popular, even though it was a disaster. Trump's plan is today's Munich. Now, the whole issue with this is that everybody knew at the time in the political establishment that Chamberlain messed up. But at the time, the cabinet itself, he had his allies to make sure that the government doesn't fall. He thought he was lucky because at the time, Chamberlain didn't have Facebook or X or Instagram. People didn't get the news instantly. People didn't have time to react to that update instantly compared to now. Whatever President Trump says or President Zelensky or Vladimir Putin, people can instantly react. But then, after Churchill obviously brought down the whole thing, they realized actually, yeah, Churchill was right, Chamberlain was wrong. Because they saw what Hitler was doing in Poland. It was nonsense. That peace in our time was nonsense. Which is kind of ironic because it's the other way around of today's situation. I love your channel. President Trump told Zelenskyy exactly what he needed to be told when he cursed the WARNS. Trump had a translator and wore an earpiece. Yeah. Another non-super chat. I have been watching your channel for quite a while now. I just have to say I love your work. Keep it up. Oh, thank you very much for the support. And keep up the support, I guess. I don't know what to say. Let's go back to you guys. Let's get some non-super chat. Gigi Cats. Gigi loves cats. Says, sorry, the American people have been more than generous with our money, taxpayers' money, and we are done. It's time Zelenskyy accepts the generosity of President Trump, who can help end this horrible war. CNN actually did a report earlier on saying, and this is CNN poll, saying that in 2022, 7% of the American population thought that there is enough support from the US to Ukraine. 7%, tiny group, right? That thought we had enough support, good support from the US to Ukraine when the war started. Now it's half the population have already said we've done enough support. By the way, that still means the other half of America still believe there can be more support from America to Ukraine. Let's not forget that. But it's about the trend of where it went within 2-3 years from 7% to almost 50%. So I think it's about 48% that CNN poll said. There's a reason for that. It's not necessarily, oh, F the Ukrainian people, let them die sort of situation. It's mostly about the people in the West, taxpayers and the electorate are smart, and they want to know if something's been done in their name, is it being done properly? Is it actually getting any result? Or is it just a waste of time? Or can we do it differently? That's the reason. Not everybody is going around saying, well, the reason I oppose this plan or I criticize Zelenskyy is because I want Ukrainians to die. No normal person says that. I mean, there will be some crazy people. But we don't tend to listen to Kanye West. So it's probably best not to listen to Kanye West. As Cynthia says, check Biden and Obama's pockets for the missing money. You forgot one key family name, Clinton. Find out what the Clintons are up to. It's interesting how the Clintons have been very quiet since the Oval Office drama. The Clinton family, they have a massive role to play in what's been going on over the last 20 years or so, since this whole drama started. And by the way, it started before Putin took control of Moscow. It started in the late 90s, actually mid-90s, in 1994, and everything just got worse and worse. Again, it's all hindsight, but you have to play with the cards you've been dealt with. Now, Chris says the USA are going to be weak soon if they are not careful. They are dependent on trade, just like everyone else. Okay. It's time for another lesson, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely incorrect. So, the United States of America was supposed to be initially, 200 years ago, an isolationist country. Right now, the word isolationist is used as an insult, as a negative word, because most of the time, for most of the countries, being isolationist doesn't really help. There was a reason that the Netherlands and Britain at the time became trading nations, and then obviously they had to go around the world and conquer the world to find more resources and to help with the infrastructure of other countries, third world countries, to help them to trade with them. But the United States of America as a land and as a population, they didn't even need any of that, because what they depend on, they depend on trade in a sense that they could sell to the world, but they won't have to buy much from the world because they can make almost everything in the United States. So America became America by also massively selling cotton and everything else and tobacco to the rest of the world. But America doesn't actually depend on free trade, anything like that. America could tomorrow become an isolationist country, build a whole wall around the whole country, and it could still survive. So America is not like Europe. This is a very European mentality thing. No, everybody needs everybody. Everybody needs cooperation. And I'm not, by the way, advocating for Americans to become isolationists. I'm simply saying if they choose to, they can still do it and they can still survive. But there is a balance that could be needed. They are not going to get weak because nobody else is getting stronger than America. Some people thought about 5 years ago that China is going to be the next superpower. Now, those people are hiding because they were idiots. And there were so many others, including myself. We did videos on this channel about 4 or 5 years ago. I said the people who are saying China is going to be the next superpower, they're going to be proven wrong, and they're going to hide. They're going to run away like idiots. China is not going to be a superpower for so many reasons. Firstly, the whole system is imploding anyway. Secondly, there is no culture, cultural values to be able to export to the rest of the world for people in the West to accept that Chinese attitude. It's just not going to work. And also, the national debt in China. You think the American national debt is bad? Just have a look at the numbers in China, let alone the political instability, economically, banking, and everything else. Ivan says, thank you again. The CNN poll was from 2024. It will be higher than 48%. Yep. Robin says, how can Zelenskyy give minerals to Trump if Russia is on the land that has it? So not all of it. That's the whole point. And it's all the whole idea is to move Russia away, mostly, so they don't have to actually even have control over the other parts. It's simply just occupied. It's not part of Russia right now. Anyway, we'll keep you guys posted on this, because obviously they're going to have dinner now, the European leaders with NATO, and let's see what resolution they come up with to go back to the American side to fix this division. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.